Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on modernizing your data warehouse in 24 hours with Palladium, a cloud-native, pre-integrated, fully managed platform for data and AI. Today, we're joined by Datalytics CTO Guy Adams, Datalytics Lead Architect Sam Hopper, Talend Global Director for Product Marketing Laurent de Hoevels, and Databricks Solutions Architect, I'm going to mess this up, Panos Athanasiou.
Oh, that was a good one.
Thanks, Panos. So Guy will start us off to give us some context on why Palladium is such a powerful platform. And then Sam is going to give us a live demonstration to show off all of its key features. We'll have about 5 or 10 minutes at the end for a Q&A, and that's where Laurent and Panos will help us with some of the specific questions around Talend or Databricks. So if you have any questions during the session about anything, please don't hesitate to send them through the questions box on your Zoom panel, and we'll answer those at the end of the webinar. So we can get things kicked off with our CTO, Guy Adams. Guy?
Thanks, Matt. Okay, so just to introduce Datalytics a little bit for those that don't know us, I guess start out with some of our customers. So Datalytics has been working in this space for 9 years now and work with a lot of very large organizations in around the UK, Europe, more and more in the US. But in particular, what we're very proud of is the shared customers that we have with Talend or with Databricks or both. We've got a very impressive set of shared customers that are using the combination of our products together, and that's a lot about what you're going to see in this presentation. So to start out, I thought it would be good to set out, what should our goals for modernizing a data warehouse be, and in particular, how would you know if you'd arrived? How do you know if you've got a modern data warehouse, and how do you measure it? And I talked to a lot of people about this, and I got a lot of very complicated answers, and eventually we realized you can actually boil this down to one thing. If you look at a data warehouse that you would have had typically 2 years ago, you're looking at some sort of managed Hadoop infrastructure or something similar, you're going to be spending over the order of 80% of your time building and maintaining the platform, and about 20% of your time actually delivering business value. That's been the staple ratio, and that's been proved using hundreds of projects over the years as the investment of time. This is what we would regard as a legacy or an old style data warehouse. You can reasonably say that you've got a modern data warehouse if you can say, okay, we are spending 80 plus, maybe 85% of our time delivering business value, and less than 10 or 15% actually building it and maintaining it. And that's really the nuts and bolts of modernizing a data warehouse. It's not about individual technologies. It's all about how much of our time and time investment are we spending delivering business value versus just building and maintaining the underlying platform. So we're going to come back to these at the end and see, this has underpinned a lot of what we've done with Palladium and what we've been trying to achieve, and I'll come back and reference this and see how we achieve that. Just to briefly explain it, so Datalytics as a company has 3 primary offerings. I'm going to cover 2 of them very quickly. Most of it we're going to focus on the third one. So the first one is our managed and professional services offering. The second one is our Gallium IoT data classifier. And our third one, as Matt said, is our Palladium data and AI platform. So the managed and professional services offering is really, this is the offering we've had for the longest. We've been doing this for 9 years now, and we work with anywhere from 5-person companies all the way up to $50 billion companies. We do everything from 2-week discovery activities all the way up to multi-year programs, and in particular, some of the more recent and most popular models are where we are doing a full partnership, where a large organization will actually ask us to take over operation of a particular part of their business, a particular data part of their business. So those things to the right-hand side. But we have capability of doing anything from small discovery right the way up to full partnership models. The Gallium IoT data classifier is a set of technologies that Datalytics have built in-house, specifically focusing on IoT sensor type data. Because this is such an increasing data set, and more of the data we're seeing falls into this category, and the data sets are so large, we realized that technology was needed to help manage that. So I won't go through the technology itself, but you can see the results of this in a simple video. So we've taken a test data set, which is not the biggest data set in the world. Not the biggest data set in the world, but 6.3 terabytes, 300 billion rows, 4.5 trillion data points is a pretty significant data set when we're actually doing analytics across the entire thing.
So can I just stop you for 1 second? We're having some issues with your audio. I just want to switch you over to the Jabra, and that'll sound better. All right.
There we go. Okay. So what we can see in that video is we have two versions of the same analytics running against that 6.3 terabytes. On the right-hand side, we have what you would get today if you had none of our optimizations in place, which is an hour and 50 minutes at 100% accuracy. What we've achieved on the left-hand side is 9 seconds. So we've improved the performance of this by over 700 times for a sacrifice of less than 1% accuracy. And that allows all the same business decision making, but for dramatic reductions in costs and improvements in business decision making. So those are the two offerings we're not going to focus on too much. The rest of this presentation will be about Palladium, which is our answer to the modern data warehouse. When we started this, one of the reasons that we built Palladium was because we had so much experience of probably 200-300 customers and people we've worked with over the years, and we tried to analyze, what level of maturity and where those customers were when we started working with them. What capabilities did they have? And we split these up into sort of rounded them up a little bit, split into the buckets. The first one was about 10% of our customers, typically the very largest customers, said, okay, we know exactly what we want, we can build it, we can secure it, we can operate it, we need very minimal, maybe we just need out-of-hour support, something like that. And that's about 10% of our customers historically. Those 10% I'm not going to talk about too much. They are typically customers who are using our managed and professional services. The rest of the customer base all fit together in some way, shape, or form. So the next set is people absolutely could do this. They have the technical skills, the knowledge, the expertise, the capability, but it's not strategic and it's not cost effective. And in fact, prior to coming to Datalytics, I ran the engineering organization for the world's largest satellite communications companies, and we fell very much into this category. We could have built it ourselves, but we wanted to focus on building the best hardware and software for running satellite networks. We didn't want to spend our time worrying about building, developing, and maintaining a data platform. The next group of people is people that know what they want, so they've got a good understanding of the technologies that are going to be suitable for them, but they don't want to go on the training courses and upskill a whole team of people to get round-the-clock coverage to actually build it. So they've got a pretty good idea of what they want, but they don't know how to build it and operate it. And in many ways, the worst ones of these are the people that underestimate the challenges, try to build this themselves, and end up with failed projects. And it's never fun from our perspective to have to go into a company that's kind of tried this, had a bunch of issues, and they call us in afterwards. It's always much preferable from our perspective to come into a greenfield site and get it right first time. But by far the lion's share of the organizations that we talk to today fall into this category. They know what the business wants, but they don't know where to go from there. And part of the reason for that, and this is to a degree where I was as a customer, is this. This is the big data and AI landscape in 2018, so actually it's more complicated than this now, but there's best part of 1,000 logos on there. And every one of those logos is absolutely a good technology for a certain use case. They're all there for a reason. But as an organization not expert in this area, to try and pick the right combination of those that's suitable for you is incredibly difficult. And the chances of getting it right are vanishingly small. And what that causes is paralysis. We talked to so many companies who've got to this point, tried to do the analysis, and just said, look, we can't make the right decision. We have no confidence in getting the right decision out of this, and they stall, and the project stalls. So looking across all those customers, everything from people that know exactly what they want, but it's not strategic for them to build it, all the way through to the people that just don't know what technology they need. We put all that together and we looked at what are the common factors across those, and could we build a platform that addresses the needs of, let's say, 80% of those customers. We're not trying to build a platform that's suitable for everybody. That would be destined to fail. There is no true one-size-fits-all. But we believe, in fact, we are now confident because we've done it, there is one platform that fits the needs of about 80% of those customers. And what did we need to, when we set out to do this, what did we need to achieve? First of all, we knew that the old days of 6, 9, 12 months to get a data warehousing and analytics project off the ground just aren't going to fly anymore. If you can't see value in the first couple of weeks, people are going to move on. The tolerance and the patience just isn't there. People expect this to be up and running incredibly quickly. So our first premise is we need to get to a point where we can just switch this on. People want to be seeing value in days, not months. And it's not just for the initial deployment. Almost everybody starts out small. Everybody starts out with a relatively small installation, even large companies, but they need to scale it up as they deploy it across more of the business. They need to scale it up as they grow. Occasionally, some people need to scale it down, and that's fine too. So it needs to be something you can not just switch on instantly, but you can also scale up and down instantly. Secondly, as you saw from the previous graph, people have a lot less in-house skills to design, maintain, deploy, and configure this. So we needed something that we just ran as a full 24/7 managed service platform that customers don't need to care about. They don't need to care about the nuts and bolts and making it all work. That's our responsibility. What we also realized is, particularly in some of the more complex areas, some of the more advanced data integration, some of the more advanced data curation, and particularly in areas like data science, a lot of customers are struggling with a catch-22. When we speak to most of our customers, we say, do you think that you'll be doing data science in-house in 2 years' time? Many of them say yes, but they're stuck in a catch-22. They can't start to build a data science discipline internally until they've proven the value of a data scientist and what data science can do for the company, but they can't prove the value until they've got some data scientists involved. So they're stuck in that loop, and we help break that by providing a pool of data engineers, data scientists, and data architects that customers can call upon. There's a bucket every customer has every month. So in the first month, you might say, okay, I want some data engineers and some data architects. A week later, you might say, okay, I need some data scientists to help me with a particular thorny question. Ultimately, this has to come in at a fraction of the cost of traditional legacy data warehouse projects. People are just not, in the sectors that are trying to get into this now, people are not prepared to cut $250,000 or even even $100,000 check to run an entry-level data warehouse, which is the absolute entry level it costs with historical technologies. So we've put together a Palladium platform with a single contract, and as I'll talk about later, a simple t-shirt size pricing. And then finally, as I said, we've targeted this not to everybody. We're not saying it is suitable for everybody. We've targeted at people with kind of 80th percentile requirements. People who've got requirements that are more complex, and that's absolutely fine. We still work with them, but that's under our managed and professional services business, not our Palladium product line. So if we look at kind of what Palladium is built of, before I hand over to Sam, I'll talk about some of the building blocks. So Palladium stands on 3 pillars. The first one is Talend, who are our partners in this event, and we appreciate them very much. And they provide all of the data integration, data processing, data transformation, cleansing, data quality, data catalogs. It's all of the glue and all of the governance around data. They also provide an enormous, as Sam will talk about, an enormous library and catalog of connectors. So we can connect into pretty much anything that you can imagine. Any system you've ever heard of, a bunch of systems you've never heard of, and even proprietary technologies, in-house built technologies. They provide toolkits for integrating with those very quickly. So Talend is absolutely our go-to toolkit, everything from ingestion, curation, orchestration, data cataloging, and all of the governance that surrounds that. We then have Snowflake as our centralized data store. So Snowflake is the world's first and only truly cloud-native data warehouse. And some implications of that, the first one, and one of the most critical ones, is completely standard SQL. So many data warehouses run variants or proprietary versions of SQL or not SQL at all, which means that you have to have specific tools that are designed to work with those. Snowflake is pure anti-SQL, which means that every tool that you've got which will talk to a SQL database will talk to Snowflake. They have a whole set of lineage capabilities, so you can go back to any point in time and remove or recover deleted data, and you can analyze your data as it was at a particular point in time, which saves a huge amount of heavy lifting yourself if you have the requirement to say, what did my data look like as of a week ago? It has great support for semi-structured data, which is becoming more and more common now. So semi-structured data is where you might include JSON or XML or Parquet embedded into your data warehouse rather than just pure columnar structure. The separation of storage compute is extremely important for cost effectiveness and performance. And then it has a whole bunch of things that you would expect: fully automated encryption, fully automated tuning. There's no need to create indexes and partition layouts. Snowflake creates all of that for you. You just create your tables, throw your data in, as Sam will show you, and you're off to the races. And then finally, the third piece that we added more recently is our data science engine, which is Databricks. And as Sam will explain, Databricks kind of really picks up where the BI layer finishes off. Databricks, if you don't know, is the managed Spark offering from the people that developed Apache Spark. So these are people that know it better than anyone else in the world. And it's an extremely scalable data science platform. So when you're not using it, it's costing nothing. When you want to analyze an enormous amount of data or train a very complex model, you can do that very quickly. And we use it for both exploratory data science, where a data scientist is going through and trying to prove a hypothesis or investigate some aspect of the data, but also for productionized work. So where we've actually taken some exploratory data science and we now want to use it to generate business value forecasts for the future. We do all of that in the Databricks platform. And then wrapping around that, we provide all of those, just turn it on, they all come fully pre-integrated and working and tested together. We then provide a set of our own capabilities on top. So we provide a whole set of design patterns and automation for data curation. We provide unified billing management, so you get one bill from us, not 7 or 8. We provide our own layers of end-to-end monitoring beyond, obviously all of these pillars have their own monitoring, but we provide end-to-end monitoring that spans all of these. We have, as Sam was going to show, a whole set of accelerated ingestion. Typically, 70 to 75% of data warehousing project times is spent on ingesting data. So it's by far the biggest time suck, and therefore if we want to reduce that pie chart that we saw at the beginning from 80% of our time being building and maintaining down to sort of less than 15, this is a critical area to optimize very heavily. We provide a unified dashboard to view all of this together, and then we wrap that in 24/7 support, and as I said, our own professional services team that's available to our customers for any support and help and development that they need. We don't mandate a BI tool, a visualization tool. The reason for that is because there is no one-size-fits-all. There are different BI tools that suit different types of data, and in many cases, people already have an in-house skill or an in-house tool that they are happy with, and we absolutely say, go with that. That will sit happily on top of all of our capabilities. Underneath that, we say you can run this on Azure or AWS. So we are cloud agnostic, and that's important for a lot of customers. A lot of customers are already starting to rest their data in one or other cloud. And it's important that we're not trying to shuffle data between cloud environments, because that's ineffective and cost prohibitive. And finally, although this is a completely cloud platform, we know that many of our customers will have a lot of their original data, a lot of their operational data on premises. So our architecture, we know, has to support on premises, and actually we use the Talend remote engines for that. So whilst we have a fully cloud managed infrastructure, we can deploy Talend remote engines inside any on-premises environment to do the local data collection and then feed it into the secure cloud. And just to mention, obviously, one of the things that you get by using Datalytics and the Palladium platform is we have very, very high-level partnerships with all of these organizations, so that when there are issues, there are challenges, or you need some very low-level help, we have first of all, we can do the vast majority ourselves. If we do need to get back to the partners, we typically have much higher support relationships than any of our customers do, so we can get the answers better and faster. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Sam to do a demo and talk through Palladium from a real use case perspective.
Okay, thank you very much, Guy. Let me just make sure my screen is sharing. Okay, fantastic. Right, so in terms of a demonstration, I'm going to give a quick walkthrough, as Guy said, of the Palladium product. We're going to look at a scenario where we've got a database, an on-premises SQL Server database in this case, and we're going to look at how we can get this data into Snowflake, analyze that data and visualize that data, all using the Palladium platform. So here's the data. This is SQL Server Management Studio. I won't go into the details, but just to show you, this is the AdventureWorks sample data set that we'll be using. It's a familiar data set, and it's loosely modeled around an ERP model. So we can see we've got various, quite a large number of tables there that we can bring in. So what I'll do is I'll log into the Palladium platform. Let me just use my safe credentials here. So it's a web-based, it's cloud-based platform. It's HTTPS, as you'd expect from all modern apps these days. And the first thing you see when you log in is the dashboard. So this gives us the opportunity to get into every part of the system. We can see what's going on. We can raise support tickets. We can do everything we need to from here. Also, the login session that we have is powered by Okta. So actually, that gives us secure authentication through into all our partner platforms as well. So if we click through into any other platform, as we've seen in the demonstration, it's all integrated. We don't need to enter other credentials. So what we can do here is, now we've had a look at the data, the source data, let's work out how we can get this into our Snowflake database that we've got configured up as part of our Palladium platform. The first way we'll look at is using Stitch. So Stitch is a cloud-based data integration platform. It's actually part of the Talend family now, and it does give us a way to, in a very robust way, bring data, do a simple integration of data from a whole bunch of different sources. In fact, if we look here, we got I think it's over 100 connectors now for Stitch. from pretty much all the common data sources you can think of, mostly cloud-based. So just click on any of those you see, you put in a few bits of information in terms of connection details, and away you go. So we've actually got a pre-configured connection here to our AdventureWorks database in SQL Server. So you can see that's started 3 minutes ago to do its last extraction. We've had a whole bunch of data loading from this over time. It's just doing complete table snapshots at the moment, but there are more complex configurations to do with delta load we can actually set up in here. You see we've got the load history. So there's the amount of rows for each table. So we get some basic stats. We can even configure how often we replicate the data into Snowflake. So that's all set up in Stitch. Like I said, very simple configuration. And once that's configured, that'll go off and that'll discover all the tables in the source. We can select from those. We can say which schemas we want to bring in, and within each schema, which tables, and even within each table, we can say which fields we want to bring in, and how we want to integrate, whether we want to do a full load or whether we want to do incremental replication, so a delta load effectively. So that's the configuration within Stitch. So now that's running, we can see that that's already pulling data. We can switch back to Palladium dashboard and now click through into Snowflake. Again, using a single sign-on, go straight through into the Snowflake interface. The first thing we'll do here is just have a quick look and see if we can see the Stitch data. There we go. So we can see we've got all the tables that we selected, all the rows that are in there, and that's ready to use. So all the data's in there ready. Each table set up with the relevant columns. That's all been done for us by Stitch. So that's all good. But what if we need more complex requirements? What if we need to go beyond what Stitch is giving us? So maybe we need a more configurable schedule, or we need to put specific transformations, or even just methods of integration into that chain. So that's where we'd move from Stitch to the Talend platform. So Talend Cloud, if I just open that up in another tab, we've got access to the, I knew that would happen. Let me just, sorry, I did too much preparation, that's the trouble. I've logged in too many times. Let's do that again. Okay. So what we have in Talend Cloud. So Talend Cloud is, I should say, cloud-based integration platform. So integration platform as a service. It allows us to develop integration routines using a thick client-based studio. So that's an application you can install locally. I won't show you that today. That's a whole other demonstration. But effectively, that's a full-fat development environment based on Apache Eclipse, which developers can use to build these routes and other routines, deploy them to the cloud platform, and that's where we pick them up in terms of this demo. So in terms of the demo here, we look at the artifacts we have deployed. Here's a job that does an ingestion of the data from SQL Server. So similar to what we saw in Stitch, and that's been deployed, built in Studio and deployed here to the platform. So what we can do is we can now create a task from this, and here's one we've got set up. So we're going to the configuration and show you. This job was deployed. We've got it set up with various different parameters. So of course we're following all good practice for data ingestion by allowing all the configuration, all the relevant configuration to be parameterized into the job using parameter groups, and especially the connection information. We can preset these connections. So for Amazon S3, for Snowflake, and for SQL Server, these are all preset configurations for the connections that we've got defined here on Talend Cloud. And there's other ways of managing those connection parameters as well. So once we've got all that set up, we decide where we're going to run. Now, because this is a cloud platform, it might not be able to see our database, but that's not a problem. So as Guy mentioned earlier, we've got a remote engine that's set up and it's behind our firewall. It's next to our database, and it's available for us to deploy this job onto. And because the remote engine we don't need to connect into the remote engine through the firewalls. The actual remote engine itself connects out using secure ports to the cloud. We don't need to make any significant firewall changes. So now we just set this up for a manual run. What we do have is in Snowflake, if I just switch back, we've got a separate database here for the Talend ingestion. You'll see it's empty at the moment. There's no tables. That's because I've cleared it down before we started. So this simulates the initial ingestion of that data. So now if I hit go live, what's going to happen now is that task has been kicked off. That's going to put in the pipeline to run. That'll be deployed down to that remote engine. And what it's doing is it's starting off by making a few connections. You see on this sort of top row on the pre-job, we're making some connections to SQL Server, some connections to Snowflake, and some setup. We're also using Amazon S3 as a staging area to push the files. We're using a robust ingestion pattern. And if I start to refresh now in Snowflake, I was probably talking a bit fast there, so it's not quite running just yet. Switch back to the, there we go, that's definitely running now. Yeah, it's just spooling up. Sometimes it just takes a few more seconds to get going. Yes, I knew that would happen. Okay. So what will happen is that this will start by creating the tables. This pattern actually that we're using in this job is quite a common one that we use in terms of integration, because it can check the configuration of the target database. It can make sure tables are created in the right schema. It's actually then going to pull the data through, stage it through flat files, and perform any transformations in terms of data type conversion between source and the target databases. So this way, the data will ingest cleanly. And there we go. We see the data coming in now. Had me worried for a few moments, but there we go. So you see the data starting to arrive. If we just keep hitting refresh, we'll see it's setting up the tables. And because it's using a pipeline style, it starts loading the data immediately after the table's created. So if we were to run this, when it's completed, we'd run it again. It wouldn't create the tables again. It would just truncate and load the data. And we can extend this pattern by using delta load to load just the data that's been added or changed since the last run, similar to how Stitch works. So we can extend from that and add in lots more transformations and other techniques into our integration jobs in Talend. So now we've got the data into Snowflake. What can we do with it? So the data's in there. We've seen both the Stitch and the Talend database, although Talend's still loading. We've got in our databases view, so we can examine the tables, see how much data's in there. If we just have a look also within the Snowflake web UI, we also have access to see the different virtual warehouses that are configured. So Guy mentioned earlier that Snowflake separates storage from compute, and that's an important concept because it does mean that it doesn't matter how big or small a given database is, we can set up separate pools of compute, separate virtual warehouses to process that data, either to use for ingestion, for data processing, for ELT style transformations, for outputs to analytics, to BI, for any other reason. We can set up these different virtual warehouses, and these can be across teams, so we can have a different assignment of warehouses to teams and so on. And it does mean that the warehouse fits the requirements of the compute and isn't constrained by the size of the database or the size of the initial setup. So if I just wait for this to load. There we go. So one other feature of the Snowflake UI is the SQL notebooks that we can maintain here, which give us the opportunity to do things like this, which is to build a view. So we've pre-created some SQL here, which lets us take some of those tables we loaded with Stitch and join them together in a virtual view of data within the database. So this is running purely as a metadata operation. It's not touching the data at all at this stage. We don't need to stand up any compute power. So effectively, this is not costing us any money just to run that query, set up that view. But if we want to see the data, that's where we need to use a warehouse. So we've got a demo one there. Just make sure that's running. In fact, it wasn't running before, but what we've done is we've set this to auto resume. So as soon as we've selected to use the warehouse, it's turned on within milliseconds, I would expect. And now if we run a quick select query against the new view we've created, we can see there's the view. We've got some nice business-friendly column headers, and we've got the data coming through. So that's now ready for us to use. There are, of course, different ways of processing the data. We can use Talend to produce data marts, data warehouses, and there are other tools available. But this is the most common way how we can do this type of output. So now we want to see the data. We've got the data in, we'll process the data, we want to actually start getting some insights from it and being able to work with the data. So if I now click a link here, I've got to Tableau. We've got Tableau set up against our Palladium instance. And as Guy mentioned, we can connect pretty much any other BI platform to the tool because Snowflake allows us to connect JDBC, ODBC, and has a load of native connectors. So if I have a quick look at the dashboard, this is actually connecting up to the view we just created. And you see it's pulled through. It allows us to do, it's not particularly imaginative dashboard, but you'll see it's got availability, access to all the data that's in there. We can do some charts. We can even refresh this live if we had a more frequent pattern of ingestion set up. And of course, using Talend, we can configure that to load, every few seconds if we want to, and have a near real-time view of data coming through to our dashboard. So then we've got the full power of BI at our disposal. We can either using our consultants or customers' consultants set up whole suites of dashboards against our source data. But sometimes that doesn't go far enough. Sometimes we either want to go beyond the capabilities of a BI platform in terms of visualization or in terms of the complexity of the analysis, or maybe we want to go off into the future and look at what might happen based on the trends in our existing data. And that's where we need to start thinking about Databricks. So Databricks is a managed Spark platform that allows data scientists access to not only the source data through its native connectors to Snowflake, but also to spin up with a couple of clicks a Spark platform on a cloud environment such as Amazon or Azure, and work with this data using familiar languages like Python. So if I open up a notebook that's been created for this, here's this is written in Python. This is something that one of our data scientists knocked up very quickly the other day, and this really just gives you a very, very quick flavor of what we can do in Databricks. So we can connect up to Snowflake using the native connector, just a few lines of code to put in the connection information. We can run queries, we can pull through snapshots of the data itself, do basic analysis, basic graphing. Okay, we could do that in Tableau, but this is a few lines of code for an experienced data scientist just to start to visualize the data. But then, of course, we move forward and we start building models. This is a simple model that uses some of the categorical features of the data to, in this case, attempt to predict sick leave from the employee database. So here we can see we've got some of the code, and then there's an error model. A graphical model there of the error bounds of this particular analysis that then can be used to inform the results coming out. So this is great for this sort of data science and exploratory work, but it doesn't end there. Once data scientists have got to that point and got a model that works and is proven against our data, we can start to train that on a regular basis by pushing data through it, and the results of that can be fed back through the scheduler that's built into Databricks. It actually pushed back into Snowflake, into other data marts that can then be combined into, for example, into a database, into a visualization such as this. So our stakeholders and other business consumers of the data can actually see not just the operational results, but also the results of the forecasting and the other models that we've processed on the data using Databricks. So that pretty much takes us back full circle to the visualization. So you can see we've gone on a full journey here through the demonstration. And in terms of what we can do in the platform, this is fully supported by Datalytics. So you could, of course, set these things up yourself, and we've seen many people do this, set up a cloud-based platform on Snowflake and Talend. But of course, you've got a support relationship then with each supplier. And management of tickets and those conversations where maybe two products are there's a shared issue or a bug or something, we can manage that relationship. So you'd have a single support relationship with Datalytics. And in terms of the billing as well. So rather than having variable and fixed bills with various different suppliers, we have one, as Guy mentioned, one single fixed bill based on monitoring and forecasting and reservations for critical workloads as well. And to extend from all the standard implementations we have, we've got professional services, we've got a team of experienced and highly skilled data engineers. So at a click, you can request time from the engineers in our office to build more integrations and processing of data. If you want to step back and actually review the actual architecture of the data itself, we can get out some of our data architects to help with that. To do processing, building models on Databricks, we can tap into our team of data scientists. And if you fundamentally got a business need, you know what you want to achieve, you've got some business requirements, but you really don't know where to start, we've got some highly skilled consultants just a click away who can be deployed to help out. So we can actually do the full end-to-end piece through the one Palladium platform.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Sam.
Thank you.
Excuse me, but there we go. Okay, fantastic. Thank you both for that presentation and that demonstration. We can open it up to questions now. So if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and just type them into the questions panel in your Zoom interface, and we'll get to those. We've had a few come in already. So the first question that I see here is, can this platform be used for multiple departments?
So I'll take that one. Yes, so all of the tools that, or the Palladium platform itself and all the tools that sit underneath it support everything you'd expect in terms of standard role-based access. So you can create different databases, different areas in your ingestion for different departments. So that's one way of doing it. You can have multiple departments that share the same infrastructure. You can also, I've just got another slide here. Let me just pull this up. It's not part of the standard presentation, but there's another architecture that we use for companies who have much larger companies, where it's typically not so much separate departments, but actually separate business units, or even customers and service providers, where we use the data sharing capabilities of Snowflake, and we deploy multiple instances of Palladium, and then we use Snowflake data sharing to effectively federate those together. So a group IT function or a service provider can mediate what information is being shared between departments or between business units.
Excellent. Okay. Another question in here. This might be a question for Laurent. What on-premise data sources can you integrate with? So if there's somebody's got on-premise data sources that they want to hook up to this cloud environment, what can we use?
Okay. So with Talend, we get more than 900 connectors, and also because we are an open source based company, we still have community developing new connectors all the time, and all those connectors are included with every Talend product. So there's no additional fees, and so we integrate with all the key players on-premise and also in the cloud already. And every time there's a new player coming in, the connector will develop really, really quickly.
All right. Thanks, Laurent. And Panos, if there's anything you want to add, please just unmute yourself and jump in. But we'll move on to the next question. What about future platform software compatibility? So when new things come out, how do we deal with that with Palladium?
So the architecture is modular. It's reasonable to say that the platform that you would have tried to build 3 years ago is not the platform that we built today, and therefore it's reasonable to extrapolate that it may not be the platform that we're using in 3 years' time. So certainly it should always be architected that when something either additional comes along or a technology is replaced with a new version or a better version or alternative, we need the flexibility to move to that. The key requirement there is standardized interfaces. It's one of the reasons that we chose Snowflake as the data warehouse, for example, is because it uses standard SQL in and out. It means that we can deploy any new tool around it that speaks standard SQL, and in the future we could even replace Snowflake with something better, faster, cheaper, as long as that supports SQL as well. There's a lot of There's a lot of good data warehouses out there that don't support SQL, and it means you end up building a whole environment of things that can only talk to each other. And when it comes to either adding something new or replacing a component in there, it's much, much harder.
Gotcha. Let's see, we have another question here. What about if we already have a license for Power BI? Can we still use Palladium?
Yeah, and actually there's another question to come from the chat. What about existing companies that are using Talend and other data warehouse platforms? How do they migrate to this new platform? So very simple question. So if you already have one of these technologies, like you already use Snowflake or you use Talend, that's absolutely fine. We have a migration path that we can work with you to incorporate that into the Palladium platform. So you kind of get all the benefits. You probably get some cost benefits as well in terms of doing that. In terms of other data warehouse platforms, we do only support in Palladium, we only support these three technologies. Palladium is always Talend plus Snowflake plus Databricks, because that's a lot of the value we're bringing is pre-integrated, fully tested, fully working together, automated deployment. It doesn't mean that for a particular customer using Talend and Databricks and Redshift isn't potentially an option, and we absolutely have customers that are doing that. That wouldn't be our Palladium offering. That would be part of our managed and professional services, and that's completely fine. But you wouldn't get all of those additional wrappings, the additional automation capabilities necessarily.
Gotcha. Okay. So Palladium is always those three core technologies. What about BI tools, existing licenses for BI?
Absolutely. We do not mandate BI tools for anybody. If people have got existing BI tools that they're happy with, then absolutely carry on using them. If people don't have BI tools or they got BI tools that they're not happy with, then we're perfectly happy to sit down with people and help them understand based on the current market, and bear in mind that two of the biggest BI tools just got sold in the last week. The market is in a state of significant flux, but based on our understanding of the market, latest and greatest, we can help people understand what the right tool is.
Excellent. Another question that's come through, what about data security? How does data get transferred to Snowflake, and what security features are provided for data storage?
So I'll start and Sam can jump in. So ultimately, one of the advantages we have of using the Talend remote engines is we get security right from effectively the very, very edge inside a customer's network. The data is being gathered. If the data store itself supports secure access, it'll be being gathered securely. It's encrypted from the remote engine up to the cloud environment. It's encrypted from the cloud environment into Snowflake. And Snowflake has a complete set of, and you can actually choose, it's a tiered model of different, every tier has encryption, but it goes all the way up to HIPAA compliant, triple key rotation architectures.
Yeah, that's quite right. All the connectors with Snowflake are encrypted in transit, and it's actually not possible to switch off the data at rest encryption in Snowflake. Additionally to that, if you're staging data through Azure Blob or through S3, again, those technologies support transparent encryption at rest, and you can always super encrypt the data as well. So various different options, but you'll always have encryption at every stage of the journey.
Fantastic. Here's a good question. How long would it take to integrate my Postgres database?
So, I mean, you saw when Sam pulled up the interface for Stitch, in principle, you put in 5 parameters, you click go, and 2 minutes later, you've got the data from your Postgres database in your Snowflake data warehouse. So it can be as little as minutes. Obviously, it depends on the complexity. If you want to do that on premises, then it would be a Talend remote engine. So we use all of our automation capabilities to create those Talend jobs to do the on-premises to cloud. The key part, as you saw in the automated ingestion tab, as I mentioned at the beginning, is that data integration, data ingestion is typically 75% of most historical big data projects. So the automation capabilities, will take what might be a month's worth of work, and we'll reduce it to a day or a few hours. But typically these days we don't see many data ingestions that take more than a couple of days, at the complex end.
Okay. It's a good Snowflake question. I haven't heard this one before, so we might have to defer to someone from Snowflake at this point. But does Snowflake support bring your own key and geo-region restrictions for storing data?
They certainly support bring your own key. That's part of the HIPAA compliance is a triple key architecture where the customer keeps one of the keys. geo restriction, I would have to take that offline and check, unless you know, Sam.
Yeah, well, the storage is backed in region, so I don't know whether. Well, I think we'd have to confirm if the data is limited to that region. But certainly, when you have an account and a tenant on Snowflake, it is limited to a specific region.
Yeah.
And you have to explicitly move your data to a different region.
So you certainly choose which part of the world you want your data to reside in. I don't think there's any out-of-the-box functionality to prevent that data from being read from that other part of the world. It's ultimately that's about who you give access to your data warehouse to. So you typically do that probably at the network and at the application level.
Excellent. I think so. Hopefully that answers that question. I think we've got just one last question here. I don't see any others coming through. It's can you manage hybrid environments? Maybe that's a good question for Laurent. And how Talend deals with hybrid environments.
Okay, so thanks for the question. I think the key thing here is, so Talend manages first multi-cloud environments and also was designed originally to be on-premise, and now it has cloud technologies. So we deal with all the environments for data, to do data ingestion and connect transformation, and also to get out of the data for the data. So we can manage hybrid environments perfectly, and also multi-cloud environment. And that's another key trigger, because some of the other technologies in the market can't manage, like usually it's cloud, a specific cloud-based, and we can manage whether it's multi-cloud, on-premise, or hybrid. We can manage everything.
And there's an important aspect to the hybrid cloud, which is transitional period. We work with a lot of people who say, today, a good chunk of my data is on premises. My vision in a year, 18 months time is all going to be cloud-based. So, there are people who may ultimately not have a hybrid environment, but having those hybrid capabilities to do all of that migration over time, moving all that data is absolutely critical.
Sure. Okay, that's fantastic. I think that covers all the questions. We've gone a little bit over time, but thanks everybody for sticking with us. It was a great presentation and demonstration. I think at the end here, we just want to let you know that if this seems like the platform for you and you're interested in learning more or getting started, we will provide a full demo and a free half-day workshop. You can just email us at info@datalytics.com. We do tend to get booked up pretty quickly with these, so if you email us sooner rather than later, we should be able to schedule something that's convenient for you. So please just email us at info@datalytics.com if you're interested in that or anything else. And I think we'll close it off there. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thanks, Laurent from Talend, for joining us. Thank you, Panos from Databricks, for joining us.
Anytime.
Thank you. And we'll be in touch with everybody very shortly. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.